Quick thing before we hop into the episode. Happy International Podcast Day. I just wanted to wish you a happy International Podcast Day. Welcome to Film Study and All American Podcast with Lexi. I'm Lexi, and I'm super excited because I have my cousin, my own flesh and blood, joining the podcast with me today, and his name is Jared. So we're gonna have some fun. Are you excited, Barry?
Yeah, let's get it going.
We're gonna talk about episodes 4 and 5. My Mind's Playing Tricks on Me is episode 4, and episode 5 is How Come? And so, we're gonna do all of that, or those two, and we're gonna have some fun. So number 1, let's get started. What would you think of these 2 episodes off the bat?
Episode 4 is really good. It really touched on the fact of family. And episode 5 was good, but a little less hearted than the first one, episode 4, because it's more mainly the game was going on, Spencer's game with Chris, and how they got stuff going on in their lives. But we'll touch more on that.
Right. Wait, so you said it touched on family. How so?
The stuff with Olivia, and Jordan. How they feel like Olivia's using again, and then
That's episode 5, sir.
that's episode 4. It's
That's
both.
definitely episode 5, right?
I rewatched both of them. It's in both. It's 4 lets it lead into 5.
But 5 is where Laura suspects.
Yeah. 5 is where she actually talks to her, but in episode 4 though, they're Laura and Coach Baker are both talking about it, like, and at the dinner table, well, that's mainly about Jordan, about Simone and all that. They said they want, all the best interests for Jordan. So that's the family stuff. That was kind of going into, and the stuff with Simone and the baby.
Yeah. So speaking about 4, I thought 4 was good. 5 was, I was wanting more on Olivia's side. Like, yeah, she got her own sort of side storyline there, but I don't know. I just feel like we could have gotten some more of her thoughts about the whole situation. She was kind of passive throughout the episode, but so we start off with 4, and we ended 3 actually with Spencer telling Layla about his arm. And she suggested he go to therapy, so it starts out with Spencer in therapy. And Spencer's just trying to figure out like what happened to his arm, and Dr. Spears is trying to help him, and I have a whole episode on this. Stay tuned for that. He's really trying to get a sense of how he can fix his arm because, he made a promise to the school and all of that to get them to the championship. What did you think about that and what Dr. Spears, because Dr. Spears advised him basically to do the hard work to figure out who or what his stuck point was. And maybe at first he thought it was, all of the stress that he's been dealing with Darnell, which we'll talk about in a second, and Jordan, which we'll also talk about in a second, and maybe in Olivia. But Dr. Spears was just like, I'm not sure it's that simple. And so as we go through the episode, we see that Spencer sort of slowly comes to the realization that Coop is in fact his stuck point. And he ends episode 4 on that thread, and then starts out episode 5 with not sort of avoiding her until like the ending of 5. He tells her. So what did you think about that whole journey from like Spencer thinking his stuck point was one thing to then coming to the conclusion that it was Coop, and then telling her in the way that he did?
I feel like Spencer did it the right way. Sometimes you gotta rip the bandage off. I mean, stuff may hurt, but he had to tell Coop that the stuff that she did end up affecting him. and it did. It ended up getting him shot. Um, because he did tell her not to do this and that. Granted, Spencer did go do some stuff on his own too that he didn't have to do, but I believe that Coop is his stuck point because the love he shares for Coop, and he just didn't want to see her do any wrong. But she also has love for herself. Coop has love for herself and love for things that's
Lots
going
of
on
love
in the
for
community.
herself. Coop is in love
Yeah,
with herself.
yeah. So I feel like the love she, I feel like Coop is a very loving person, and all that love
Hmm.
ended up turning into a bad thing.
Right, right. And that's a very balanced view, sir. I appreciate that.
Mm.
I also agree that I thought that Coop was Spencer's stuck point. Um, and I'm glad that he came to that conclusion. Uh, we'll all have to remind ourselves that these characters are still in high school, still, and so they're
Yeah,
not always gonna
a lot of
sort of
emotion.
right. They go off emotion, and they're not always gonna respond maybe in the most perfect way. And so I think, even though I think that he was maybe a little short with her, uh, at the end of five, I think it's because he had been sort of bottling this up, and so it just came out.
All at once.
Right, it came out all at once, and maybe even a factor of all of the stress that he had been going through. And we know that Coop on her end has also been dealing with trying to figure out whether she wants to stay in school. She's really behind, and so she's been figuring that out, and also
Mhm.
trying to deal with this Mo thing in the background, where it's like Mo's. It seems like Mo is actually, turning a corner, taking a new leaf, and
Trying to change the
trying to
Kennesaw
change the
community.
community. Do you believe that?
Mm. Um, in a way, I mean, she is from there. Like, she might have her own reasons of why she's doing it, but I feel like she's trying to change it to an extent.
Right, right. I actually feel the same. Feel the same. Um, and so anyway, so yeah, we know that Coop is pretty preoccupied with that, and both Spencer and Patience actually are getting pretty frustrated with Coop, I would say, because she is so worried about Mo and what Mo's doing. Um, but yeah, so that's on Coop's end. But going back to Spencer for a second, we know that things with the Chargers haven't been great, and this story just continues because in episode 4 we see that Darnell is leaving, because his mom is like hurt, and so he has to go and take care of
Yeah,
her. And we also know that they had that like issue with who's going to be the quarterback. It was this push and pull between Darnell and Chris, and
of
maybe we saw
course.
like once Darnell got his opportunity, then he has to like go and leave, and so Darnell's dealing with that. And so is Spencer, really, because we know that Spencer thought that Darnell was a better choice
Yeah,
for a quarterback, and so now he's gone. And in episode 5 specifically, uh, we see that Chris is still struggling, and they're trying to figure out a way to help him. And Chris is struggling because Spencer is a stuck point. So there's just a ton of going on. There's a ton going
yeah.
on.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that whole thing? Because you are a football player. So
Yeah.
2 questions I have
Um.
for you. Number
Okay.
one, do you think Billy was right to give Chris like he was captain, and name him starting quarterback? And then number two, what do you think finally clicked in Chris's mind, after Darnell left, um, to say like maybe he should sort of step it up, which he eventually did in episode 5.
I feel like Coach Baker's decision for Chris to be the starting quarterback was the right move, even though Chris might not have been the better quarterback. But for a team that's getting a brand new head coach, brand new system, I feel like you have to keep some familiarity from the last system because people might not always want to follow that direction. And that might just go for a lot of things, for jobs and anything like that.
Right.
So for him to keep Chris as the starting quarterback, even though he might not have been the best option, that was the correct move in my opinion. Because Chris already knows the guys. He lived there his whole life. Those are people that he's grew around. Darnell's only been there for what, a couple months, a year, whatever it was. Um, so I feel like that was definitely the better option.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
you said
I
for
agree
Chris's,
too because I think Chris led them to a state championship. He wasn't in control of his um, injury, and so I think that he deserved the opportunity to prove himself, which he eventually did. And though I do feel for Darnell, and I also understand Darnell's frustration because it's his senior year and he's a top
yeah,
player in the
and
country. And
he wants his
it's a tough decision
scholarships.
all right. It's a tough decision all around, and I didn't love how Billy handled the situation with Darnell, but I did agree with his decision. So that's how I felt about it. But what about the other question? How do you think Chris finally came to, like, we know that Spencer was sort of his stop point because he got injured, and we he had that moment in the game where it was like they had been running max protect all night long, and he finally like was just like, we need to open up the playbook. So what do you think happened in his mind?
I feel like he's seen like Spencer and his other teammates really throwing it down, everything they had, but he's not giving everything he had, and they're losing. And he already knows if they lose again, it's more than likely no playoffs, no state. Crenshaw's getting shut down, so he has to pull his weight. And seeing his teammates pull their weight, it only gives him the motivation to actually go out and do what he needs to do. And I feel so once he seen that, it all came on the line, and he ended up throwing a first down to Spencer while taking a shot, and then laughing about it with Spencer saying, "You're not my last hit no more." So that made him made him feel a little better about what's what the stakes lies ahead. If that makes any sense.
Right, right. This actually, and maybe this is because the Cowboys just played. You already know they're not my favorite team, but it actually sort of reminded me
Not
of
at
Dak.
all.
Obviously, Dak started off much better than Chris did, but you know,
Mm.
coming off of that injury last season, um, in playing as well as he did, now that we watched them play against the who they played last night, the Eagles.
The
They
Eagles.
played against the Eagles, and so it, like, I don't know, us doing this podcast today just reminded me of
Yeah.
that and how like Chris handled coming back from his injury.
Injuries are a big thing in football because injuries definitely can mess with your psyche. You don't want to get hit like that again. Um, so it makes you play a little slower, makes you be more cautious. But
Right.
football's not a game that you can really be cautious. You have to like literally
Make quick decisions.
quick decisions. You got to be fast, precise, and if you're off just a little bit, that can mean a big play or a small play.
Right. Right. And you have to take what the defense gives you. I've been laughing at that because that's something that they always say about Lamar Jackson, our quarterback. Um, but yeah, so moving on to the other football team in the show, Beverly, we see that. Oh, man.
Asher and Jordan.
Yeah.
Um,
So problematic all the time. But Asher is in episode 4 trying to get in with Coach Montez, and Jordan, as we know, is like taking steps to be a better leader. And so, really, what we see is that Jordan has sort of taken the steps to be a better leader, but he is um, concerned with Simone, his girlfriend, and because she's just giving up her baby, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I almost feel like in episodes 4 and 5, we see, I don't know if it's a power shift necessarily, but Asher is still trying to get back onto the team in episode 4, and by episode 5, he's back onto the team, because Coach Montez sees, the work, even though, I feel like he put in minimal effort, and maybe I'll get your opinion on that as a football player, but that he put in the work to help his team get better, and then she switches him to defense, and he's not very pleased about it. But yeah, so he, steps up, and Jordan is very concerned with, like I said, concerned with Simone, and then he has this issue where he takes concussion medication that he should not be taking. That's
Hmm.
actually bad for him. Like anti-nausea medication, because he had a concussion and JJ had to step in. So what was your thoughts on all of that? Just as Ashley's coming back onto the team after he was suspended for taking steroids, and we obviously know that in season 1 he gave up the playbook to the other team, um, and so now he's just sort of trying to turn it around for himself under a new coach, and then Jordan's trying to take on further leadership with the help of Willie, but he's sort of getting distracted now by Simone, and then he his his leadership is sort of put on pause because he's paused for now on the team because of his concussion.
Well, for Asher, me personally, I wouldn't want somebody back on the team that gave up my team's playbook in a playoff game to another team.
Facts.
That's just dead. Um, but for the stuff he has doing, I can't say he has. It does look like he's been working out a lot. He's been around the team. I'm gonna say he's been trying. Um, yeah, I wouldn't be pleased either if I was playing receiver my whole life and had to move to defense. But at the end of the day, most coaches look out for your best interest. So he
And
might
I
not
think
see it
Montez is a
now.
good coach.
Yeah. So he might not see it now, but she's just looking out for him.
Right.
And then for Jordan, the concussion stuff is a big thing. He took a shot in the game. They said he's gonna be out for the game, and then he heard his dad and his old teammate talking. So the nausea medicine he was taking, it's not definitely not good for him because they even said the side effects that was happening to his dad's old teammate because he
Right.
said he almost found him dead. So that would be a red flag right there to go try to take it.
Exactly. And like the very next scene, he's taking it, which is like,
And then he's
Jordan, why are you
taking it.
being stupid?
All right.
And Jordan
Um,
stays being impulsive.
a lot of impulsive decisions. So I mean, but I guess he's doing it because it's senior season. He doesn't have any scholarships yet, even after winning a state title. He's trying to look out for his future, and that's probably the main reason he's doing it.
Right.
Um, but he also saying that JJ just at the end of that game, JJ also just threw a touchdown, so he's like, I got to get back as soon as possible. That's probably what's going on. It's mine.
Yeah, he doesn't want to lose his spot, which is interesting because it's like JJ isn't, I mean, granted, we don't know much about JJ as a player. We know that he's a party guy, but it doesn't
Mhm.
seem.
He didn't. He wasn't when they did show him. He was beforehand. He wasn't an offensive player. He was a straight defensive player.
Exactly. So I'm very confused as to why Jordan would even be insecure about JJ in the first place.
But
Which
I believe they said he did play quarterback in middle school, so that's
middle school,
something.
which is
Yeah, I
in
mean that's something, but uh,
Billy was
it's not
like,
too big.
if JJ was a capable quarterback, he would have been, you know, quarterback. Um, But yeah, it seems like JJ's. It seems well, and I don't even know if he's a more mobile quarterback because Jordan's a pretty mobile quarterback.
Yeah,
That was
Jordan,
like one of
he can
his
move.
storylines is that he would run instead of pass
Yeah,
in his first season, I think.
yeah, Jordan can move. He can definitely, and they even they had Spencer throwing him touchdown too one time down the
Right.
sideline.
So yeah, I don't know where this like I don't know why Jordan is in his head, and yeah, maybe it's the concussion stuff uh about JJ, but Jordan is Jordan. And
Hmm.
so the other thing with Jordan is that Simone has had her baby, and is she had this feeling in episode 4 that she wanted to get her baby back, and then she ended up, seeing how Shay, which is the baby's name, how Shay was with his adopted family and his family, and they invited her in, and they had a really nice moment where they sort of accepted Simone and understood her need to just make sure that her child was okay. And so it seemed like that ended up on a good note, but it was a little bit we uncertain for a second there.
Yeah, I mean it's a big uncertainty in life. Like you got pregnant in high school to a person that doesn't want said child. So you believe in you're doing this all alone, even though you are in a relationship with somebody else. Um, but she probably just didn't think she was ready. But
Yeah,
seeing
yeah,
a family that has a house already taking care of the baby, saying this is my son, that that even brings even more uncertainty. Like, what am I doing? Is right or wrong?
right, right. And I
So
think that once she saw that the family was nice and that they were welcoming and that they really did care for her baby, and she felt good about her decision
hmm.
for sure. And I don't correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think she was in episode 5. Simone.
Nah, Simone
Nah, she
was
wasn't.
not in episode
It's
5.
all about Jordan and his concussion. Um,
And most of the game was taking up most of the episode.
right. Um, and so we know that as we wrap up the football stuff, Darnell was gone, and feel bad for him because it's his senior year, and that's really uncertain about like how he's gonna finish that and what's gonna happen to his scholarship. And he was pretty upset about it, but he seemed even more upset about the fact that he was losing a family. To your point earlier, like he, as a military kid, was just like, I know that I shouldn't get attached to people, and he did get attached to life in Crenshaw, and so he was struggling with that a bit, and saying goodbye to Dylan and saying goodbye to Spencer and Grace and Cam.
Yeah, yeah. It was like I said. The episode to me seemed more about family, especially because of Darnell. Because like he just lost their dad. I forgot the name. Um, Spencer and them's dad. So they just lost him.
Yeah, Corey.
Um, Corey. Yeah. And now this is his mom went back to base, so he was like he just wanted some certainty, and this seemed like certainty to him. He still got to play football. He got to move in. He got to have a stable home in a way, and he was getting comfortable. And this is the first time in probably in a while that he has decided to get comfortable.
Right, right,
So, and then for to say that no matter what, like you always have a place to come back to, saying this is home, this is family. I feel like that's why I said that the episode 4 is mainly touching on family because of what him, Jordan, and Simone and the baby. Um, how the grandfather was there. They had uh at the baker's house and they had dinner.
right. Even sorry, one second. Shouting out, even though Willie deserves no credit for this, really. But even Willie was saying, "Oh, I need to get to know my granddaughter better," which is just like about time.
Yeah, like yeah, where have you been? for the 15, 16, 17 years they've been born.
Exactly. And
I
not
know
only
you've been
that,
I
but
know
like
you have
since he
problems
got
with
there,
your
he spent
son
most of his time with
time with Jordan.
right,
That's
right,
mainly because of football.
exactly. And he tried to, you know, have Jordan pay him. That's a whole nother story. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was. I did enjoy episode 4 because it was so focused on family. I like that too. Um, and so, we'll quickly touch on this. Patience is trying to get out of her contract. She eventually goes to Mo. Coop is kind of upset about it, but she gets out of her contract, and so there's that.
Um, I feel like Coop should be happy that she got over contract, no matter the means. Um, it's not like Mo said that she owed her anything, which Patience said, but Coop took it in a whole other direction, and that's why they stopped talking. And that's what end up leading Coop to Spencer at the end of the episode, and
Right,
Spencer let her
right.
tell.
I think Coop should be happy too because now Patience can is free to sign with Layla, and
Hmm. And
you
they can
know
make
they
their
can
music video, make their
exactly
drop their
they
song.
can make a music video, which Coop thinks is amazing, and their music, which Coop thinks is amazing. I don't know how the audience feels about
Yeah,
Coop's music.
yeah. I, I feel like Patience can sing, but Coop music ain't it. It ain't it.
Honestly, I listen. Say JP was correct. Like
Yeah, like
he was interested in Patience for obvious reasons.
obvious reasons. Like
No
your
offense, Coop,
music
but
ain't it.
yeah, it ain't it. It ain't it, Coop. I'm sorry.
Rapping ain't for everybody. Stay in school, sweetheart.
Stay in school, Coop. You don't lie, so I can say that. Now I'm just like thinking about all the TikTok. When she when they had that like battle and it was just like they were like saying Coop is a snitch.
It ain't
Like,
it.
you
She
die.
ain't it.
Man, Coop, yeah. Stay in school, Coop. Maybe reconsider the whole, trying to get out of school thing. Um, and so that was all of that. And with with Crenshaw, we know that like Layla sues her dad. It doesn't end up working out, but Patience gets in her contract anyway. That was really what Layla's purpose was, including like you know the thing with Spencer and therapy. And the big one, Olivia and Spencer and Olivia. Um, Olivia has just been not herself, I think. And Spencer and Olivia haven't been their usual selves. And 3, they had that discussion, yeah, heated discussion, if you want to call it, at the pool table. And it seems like Olivia was with Spencer in Vegas. And then she left and she saw Asher. And we know that Spencer also got together with Layla in Vegas at some point as well. Um, what that
Hmm.
means, we don't know. But yeah, they kind of left off on a weird note. And by episode 4, it seems like they are trying to find their way back to being friends. Like they said that they missed each other and they wanted to, be friends again. And so they agreed with that, and they had this little hug. And it just seems like, it's ever since we started season 3, it's like there's this romantic undercurrent that wasn't there necessarily over the past like season and a half since Spencer has gotten together with Layla.
Yeah, but I felt like Spencer was always gonna come back. You could just tell from the rep, like they had like a different connection
Connection.
than
Yep.
yeah
Right.
everybody else, and they just seemed more natural. If that makes sense.
It does. And in Spencer's own words in 4, he says they just get each other. And
Yeah.
Dr. Spears actually takes that to me. Takes that as Spencer is in love with Olivia, and he's like, "No,
Yeah.
she's just my friend." So, what did you think about that?
I feel like he just hasn't fully realized his feelings. I feel like he knows, but he doesn't fully realize yet.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
makes sense.
I'm in the same boat. I still want to know what happened in Vegas, but it just is like, for now, they've just decided to be friends, even though it doesn't look like that's gonna be the case for
Nah, not forever.
very long. It just,
Yeah.
yeah, you just feel like something's gonna happen. And they didn't see each other in five, and that's mostly because we followed Olivia sort of for the first time. Again, we know that she's drinking, and this time Laura starts to suspect that she's drinking and tells Billy tells Billy about it. Uh, and Billy does some half-hearted attempt at checking on Olivia. That man
Yeah,
irritates me.
he's not the best of father unless it comes
He's
to
the worst
football.
father. Not even not the best. He's the
Yeah.
worst, in my opinion. In my opinion. Here, eat some eggs so that I know that you're not using. What in the world? But yeah, so they're sort of trying to figure it out. Laura, she's concerned about this, and Billy is the one who really pushes this, like, oh, we shouldn't have done this. But Laura takes a basically takes the sample of Olivia's hair and gets it
Hmm.
tested. And Billy's, says you crossed the line and we've broken our trust. But I, when you have a daughter who's an addict or a family member who's an addict,
They need to take all steps
yeah,
reasonable,
it's boundaries are important, but we also
but
have to
sometimes
realize that boundaries
you
have
got
to
to
be
overstep. You
flexible
gave
when
them
it's
boundaries. You gave them boundaries at first, and then they did what they did.
exactly, and when it's something like addiction, it's just more important, and it's important to respect people's boundaries, but it's also important to do what you can to help your family. And so I think that Laura did the right thing, and she apologizes, and it looks for a moment there like Olivia is gonna um, basically confess that she's been drinking because alcohol wasn't tested, so the test came back clear. She wasn't taking pills.
Hmm.
Um, and but Laura gets a call, and Olivia sort of is just like, no, answer your call, even though Laura was gonna keep talking to her. She's like, no, answer your call, and leaves and apologizes and almost pours out the alcohol in her body. But then obviously Jordan and his concussion mess stops that.
Yeah. Um. I feel like Olivia just has to get. She has to be willing to get the help she needs.
Yeah,
I feel like.
and admit to others. We know that she has admitted in the past, and it hasn't, maybe because of everything that's happened. Like, there's been so much that's happened on the show in the past two seasons, and between Spencer moving
Hmm.
in with them and the affair and the shooting, which she was also a part of, she's gone through quite a lot. And so it seems like this season she's been more reluctant to talk. But it's important for her to like share what she's going through with other people.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people ignored her a lot too.
Right.
No one really paid attention to her, and I feel like she's just used to being isolated in a way.
Right. Right.
Even her own twin brother wasn't fully paying attention to her,
Exactly.
even though they
Exactly.
live in the same house, do things, but she ended up more relying on herself and found something to help with that, and that's mainly her addiction ended up going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So I hope that she gets what she needs, but that you know, there's a lot going on. So we sort of leave off on the note of what's happening with Jordan's concussion, what's happening with Olivia. Is she able to sort of overcome this struggle that she's been having with alcohol? Spencer, you're gonna figure out what your feelings for Olivia are, and vice versa for her, but also like, you've now shared your with Coop that she's your stop point. So how is all of that gonna go? How's that friendship going to uh, survive that, or even just how's the friendship gonna navigate that? And you know, yeah, there's Asher is always Asher, so there's that, and
But
just
Asher
there's
and
a
Olivia,
ton of stuff.
technically, at the moment, they're still dating, even though we don't know what happened in Vegas and over the summer. But
Right,
Asher and
and
Olivia are
Vanessa,
still.
and he has his own little side piece going on. So it's just
Mhm.
like, what is happening? What is happening? And it seems like we're gonna get some of those answers in 6 with teenage love. So we'll talk
Yeah.
about that when it comes. But it definitely seems like we're starting to get a clearer picture of what happened in Vegas / over the summer. But there's still all of these questions that we have. Yeah, that's 4 and 5. What do you think? What did you anticipate was going to happen in 6 and beyond? Like, what were
I
your
think
thoughts after you watched 4 and 5? Before you watched 6?
we got to see how Spencer, like, we got to pick up our 5 and all. Got to see where this leads Spencer and Coop.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how will their relationship be afterwards? What's gonna happen? Because it literally cut off on Spencer's face. Um, how is the sex game gonna go for Beverly with Asher and Jordan being able to play? Will Olivia finally decide to admit that her drinking could be a problem? That's my main concerns.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the last one, even though, again, Billy is not my favorite character, forgot to mention this. Something with Billy's mom. It seems like Billy is really upset at Willie for something that happened with his mom. And so figuring that out more. But I think besides the whole Spencer and Olivia thing, I think I just really wanted to see if Laura would continue to sort of clue in on Olivia, because like she said, she did promise that she was going to pay more attention, and so it looks like she made a step. But yeah, just digging, I just hope she digs a little deeper. That's sort of where I am. But yeah, that's 4 and 5. What's it, the names? How come? And my mind's playing tricks on me.
I believe so.
Right. But yeah, that's the episode. Thanks for joining. Did you have fun, cousin?
I did.
I'll have to get you on during the actual show's run. Wait, but you're one of those. I'm gonna wait until Netflix people. But I'm gonna make you watch an episode as it's airing, so that you can, that my audience.
I watched the first one. I watched the first one.
Maybe I'll have you on the first review, so that the audience can enjoy more of my cousin.
Yeah, I watched the first one just for you. The first day it airs on television. It should be soon,
thank
right?
you. Yeah. It's like in a month, just under a month actually. Yeah.
Because I was like, I know I've just seen the preview.
All right, sir. Thanks for joining. And that's our show. That is our show. Thank you for listening to Film Study, an All-American podcast, and stay tuned for the next episode. Have a ton of fun stuff coming out that we got for you, so hope you enjoy it. Take care.